Hi, 3 and 4 year old leaders. We are preparing for August 25th in our series called Back to Basics. This week, we're continuing to look at Solomon from the book of 1 Kings 6, chapter 6 through chapter 8. And in these chapters, Solomon builds the temple. If you remember, we several months ago talked about with the kids that God had them build the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was a reminder to them that God was always with them. Well, when David was king, he wanted to build a temple, but God stopped him and he says, God says, when your time comes and you rest with your fathers, I will raise up after you your descendant, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. So 2 things in that helps us see that he's preparing us for Jesus, right? And then it also points out that Solomon, David's son, would be the one who helps build the temple. And it makes sense that Solomon would be that person. Remember, he was able to ask for anything, and he asked for wisdom. And not only did he get wisdom, he got wealth. And he got power, and he had many nations that he conquered. And so he began to see great successes in the world standard. And so as a result of that, he was prepared to, financially and everything else, skill-wise, to help build this temple. And there are very, very specific ways that God had them build the temple, and it lays it all out in those chapter 6 and chapter 7 of 1 Kings. So as we continue to go through and talk about Solomon building the temple, there's a couple things that I think is important for kids to understand. One is the temple was not a permanent residence for God. In other words, when we come to church, that's not the only place that we can see God or experience God. For many of our kids, they may feel like that is true, but it's important for us to help them see that God is with them wherever they are, especially if they're believers. And so because God is everywhere, he doesn't need the temple to live in. In fact, the temple does not exist right at this time. It was destroyed. And I have been to the place where the temple was, and unfortunately, there has been a Muslim mosque built, not exactly on the side of where the temple was, but in the same area as, and it's actually really sad to consider that the piece of real estate that has caused so much angst for so many years still is one of those symbols that God is waiting for his return through Jesus. And so it's definitely a picture to show us all that what God meant, man is not doing a good job of caring for and taking care of. And so if you get the chance ever to go, I really encourage you. It has been one of those things in my life that has definitely reshaped how I see the world and how I see God's plan and what he has for the world, even people who do not believe in Jesus or practice our religion. And so all of that, I know there's a lot. And so there's a couple other takeaways. The Bible teaches us that Christians, like our body, is a temple of the Holy Spirit. In other words, when Jesus left us, he told the disciples and everybody else, I'm sending a helper. And when we believe in Jesus, that helper comes and dwells within us, and our body then becomes like the temple. In other words, we need to do our best to care for ourselves. We need to do our best to acknowledge that because the Holy Spirit is within us as believers, then we have authority, and we also have the accessibility to go to God at any time. We don't have to wait to go to church. And so hopefully you're able to frame that in a way that kids can understand. And I'm sure they'll do a fabulous job of that on your video as well. Um, your social activity is still the pay attention game. I hope they're having fun with this. When I've peeked in to watch you guys play, they seem to be having a lot of fun with this. And maybe you're getting to the point where you could assign the kids to be the leader, and everybody else has to close their eyes and you have to guess what they're doing while your eyes are closed, or mimic what they're doing. So the way it gets played, in case you've not done this yet, is you tell your kids to watch you. You're going to do some crazy move, and then they're going to copy you after you do that. And then after that, they're going to close their eyes, and you're going to do something different and while their eyes are closed. And then you're going to tell them to open your eyes, and when they open their eyes, they're supposed to do what you just did. And so you can make it as silly as you want to. It really is meant as a way to build a relationship with a kid. Remember, when you're spending this time playing with kids, you're helping a kid see that you are trustworthy, and that it's giving you something common for you guys to talk about later, so that you can continue to build the relationship and share Jesus with somebody later. So if you ever feel like, oh, I don't understand what this game has to do with what we're teaching, most of the time it has nothing to do with what we're teaching. It just helps us build that relationship with a kid. And once we have the opportunity to break down the walls a little bit and really get in so they can hear us in a different way, then you are providing, then doing that game was worth being silly every minute, because fun over time creates connection with a kid. All right. Then you're going to go into your small group time, and you'll have some glue sticks available to you. And you can do this a couple different ways. It's supposed to be where you could do a couple different things. I'm going to provide you some extra paper if you want to. They can tear paper, and they can put their paper in here to decorate their temple. You could use the cutouts that we already have for you, a couple of each for each kid. They're supposed to kind of go in the blocks here if they want to. If they want to be more creative, I say be more creative. That there doesn't have to be one certain way to complete this temple template. Although God did give Solomon specific instructions, there doesn't have to be specific instructions for them to decorate their temple. You could also, if you want to not use the glue sticks, you could use crayons, and they could design their temple with as many elaborate things as they want to add to it. So that is your small group activity. Your memory verse is from the book of James. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. James 1:5. Now, I don't have motions for you this month or this series. Mostly because there's just a whole lot of words that there's not necessarily an action for, unless we were all to learn sign language. And so I was thinking that you may just want to play a little game. Like one time, maybe you say it really, really quiet. And the next time you play, say it really, really loud. Or maybe one time you say it really, 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 really high. Or maybe the next time you say it really, really low. So totally up to you. Use your silly voices. If you know how to do fun voices like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck or anybody else, I'm sure the kids would find that fascinating. Just a way to help the words sink in, because this verse, I think, is so important for all of us to remember. If there is ever a time, and I have to tell you, this has become true in my life. There have been multiple times where I felt I was totally ill-equipped to teach, much less to learn from the Bible, because I had nothing to start with. And so, you know where I started? I started by praying and asking God to show me what His Word means. In other words, every time I get in the Bible, I start with that prayer. God, I need for you to show me. I don't know that I know what I'm supposed to see in this, but I need you to show me what I'm supposed to see. And so, what I know is God has abundantly shown me multiple times that his word is to be trusted, and that because his word is to be trusted, we can trust his character, and his character is consistent, and that he doesn't find fault in us asking for something so trivial as to, God, I don't understand the Bible, I need you to help me. And that because he doesn't find fault in it, he will give it to us and give it to us generously. Then you can pray with your kiddos. And dismiss them when you're ready, or if you want to go back and play your game a little longer until parents are there to pick them up. We have huddle this Sunday after church from 12:30 to 2-ish, probably a little bit before 2. Come eat with us. Your kids are welcome to stay. We have childcare ladies there ready to take care of your kids so that we can sit down together. In this next season of life together, we are going to be looking at ways that we can all be growing. You know, I told you that one of the ways that I have learned to grow over the years is to learn to pray and ask God for things first. And so those are some practical things that we hope we can share with each other, and especially if you feel like you need some help in that area. And if you don't, come anyway. It's a great time to get to know who you lead with. It's a great time to build relationships with other leaders. And then we try to encourage each other and pray for each other as well. I hope to see you at Huddle. Have a great week.